along in my automobile, my baby beside me at the wheel. I stole a kiss at the turn of a mile, my curiosity running wild, cruising and playing the radio, with no particular place to go.
And now, live from the studios of WTAN, the Fuel Savers with host Barry Hart. Listen and learn about the latest in fuel-saving technologies, regulations, and trends in the automotive and fuel industry. And now, the man who knows the best how to save you money at the fuel pump, a pioneer in hydrogen-aided combustion systems, Barry Hart.
Welcome once again to Fuel Savers Radio. I'm your host, Barry Hart, and you're listening to the only source of true information about how you can save money on fuel. I also inform you about scams which claim to save you money on gas, but either don't work or are doing harm to your engine. So listen up to the show today because it's going to be interesting. The number to call if you have questions or if you want to contribute to the show is 1-866-826-1340. I repeat, 1-866-826-1340. And yes, that number is valid for those of you in Canada who wish to call. Or if you're in the Pinellas County area, Florida, here you can call us at 441-3000. That's 727-441-3000. We're also streaming live over the Internet. Hello out there, everyone. So anyone who wants to tune in and see what's going on here in the studio, go to www.fuelgeniesystems.com. Over on the left side of the screen in a big yellow box, you'll see Listen Now. Click on those words, Listen Now, and it'll take you right here to the studio, and voila, you'll be right here with me. If you want to email me, you can do so at barryh@fuelgeniesystems.com. That's for all of you listeners in foreign countries who are tuning in right now into the Internet website. So that, again, that's Barry H, B-A-R-R-Y-H, @fuelgeniesystems.com. And now let's get down to the business of the show. First off, before anything, my favorite part of the show, my word. If you're like me, all you want out of this life here in the U.S. is to make a decent living. Provide for your wife if you're married, kids if you have them, keep a roof over your head, and stash away some money for vacations, emergencies, retirement, beer in the box. Sounds simple, but each day our government is making that more and more difficult. One way they make it harder for us is by increasing our cost of living, and by that, I mean increasing the cost of gasoline and diesel fuels for our cars and trucks. I'm not stumping for any candidate, but I do want to tell you that the government can get the price of gasoline down to well below $3 a gallon. I am not kidding. I'll say that again. Our government can get the price of gasoline down to below $3 a gallon. You see, way back in September of 2011, regulations, which the mainstream media is supposed to tell us about but didn't, regulations were changed in the Commodities and Futures Trading Commission. That's the CFTC. These regulations allow oil companies to export refined oil products from the U.S. to other countries. Sounds innocent enough, but what it's done is allowed oil companies to take the oil we drill for here, plus the oil we import from foreign countries, refine it and process it, and ship out the refined products like gasoline and diesel fuel to countries like Brazil and England, where the prices of gasoline and fuel are much higher. So they make more money doing that. Now, what happens then is because they get more money from the because they make more money, the government is able to take more money from them in taxes, and therefore the government coffers grow. Now, this in and of itself is not bad. It's actually pretty good business. The problem comes when oil companies send so much of their refined products overseas that they create artificially a false shortage here in America. Now, this shortage of fuels is used as an excuse to raise the prices of gasoline and diesel oil at the pumps. Hello? This is not rocket science. When oil became a world commodity traded on the world market, prices for crude oil increased from a low of $16 a barrel to $40 a barrel inside of 3 months. Now that our government, in its quest to move us to a one world government, has elevated refined oil products to world commodity status, gas and diesel fuels will rise to the levels of other countries now. All our government or president has to do is say to the CFTC, refined oil products will no longer be shipped out of the country. This will cause the prices of gas and diesel fuels to drop drastically. Immediately. We drill and import enough oil for our domestic consumption to keep refined gas and diesel prices to below $3 a gallon. That works well for all of us and for our economy. It doesn't work well for our Congress, which is spending more money each month than the country takes in and uses that extra tax dollars to fund the change in our form of government from capitalism to socialism, where everyone is controlled by regulations designed to take money from us hardworking souls and give it to the government so they can dole it out to us as they see fit. We only have ourselves to blame for all of this. Until we elect representatives and senators to Congress who vow to be fiscally responsible and rein in government spending, government will continue to cause the price of gas and diesel fuels to rise. It's up to us, America. If you want to see cheaper fuels, a lower cost of living, a simpler, easier life, vote everyone who votes for increasing spending out of office. This and only this is the remedy for putting America back on the road to prosperity. And that's my word.
Come on, everybody! Come on in! Bobby's gonna show you how to do the swim!
You're listening to the Fuel Savers Radio right here on 1340 WTAN 10 Talk Radio, serving the greater Tampa Bay area and Dade City as well. And now, on to the meat of today's shows. You know, I'm getting flooded with email from people all over the U.S. and all over the world, really, wanting to know more about how hydrogen increases miles per gallon in cars and trucks. Well, it's not a difficult thing to understand. In fact, it's fairly easy. What you have to understand, and first I'll talk about how this works in cars, gasoline engines, okay? First, you have to realize that every single gasoline engine that's out here, every one of them, they are very, very inefficient. In fact, if you ask automobile engineers, designers and engineers, those are the brains up there in Detroit and all over the world really putting this together, they'll tell you that the reciprocating engine, Wankel engine too, the reciprocating engine is only about 38% efficient in translating chemical energy into mechanical energy. That's the energy that's in the gasoline, translating that energy, that potential energy in gasoline, to mechanical energy, actually making that energy turn the crankshaft of the engine, which turns the transmission, turns the wheels, and makes the car go faster out here. Yeah? That's what we're looking at. So, once you understand that, now you can begin to understand how hydrogen can make your car run better. Hydrogen has a property of increasing the burn rate of the fuel-air mixture. And what that means is it makes the fuel mixture burn faster. Hydrocarbons, gasoline, petrochemicals, it makes it all burn faster. Now, how does this benefit people in cars, gasoline cars? How does it make the engine more efficient? Well, you have to realize a little bit about how the gasoline engine actually works. You see, as the crankshaft is turning round and round and round inside the engine, what happens is there's four different components to how the piston actually works inside the engine. On the very, very top of the stroke, beginning the four-stroke or four-cycle for four-stroke engines, you have the intake stroke. That's where the piston goes down in the cylinder. The intake valve opens up and allows fresh air to come into the cylinder. When the piston reaches the bottom of the intake stroke, now it's sitting at the bottom of the crankshaft there, the intake valve closes. When the intake valve closes, the piston still starts to come up inside the cylinder now. And as it comes up inside the cylinder, it begins to compress the gases up inside of the air that it just took in. It begins to compress that air. Now, on its way up inside the cylinder, at about 30, 40 degrees before top dead center, the fuel injector squirts a measured amount of gasoline inside the cylinder. Now, the piston's still coming up. As that gasoline is squirted inside the cylinder, boom, the spark plug begins to spark over in the top of the combustion chamber there, and it's much faster than that, actually. It begins to spark, and it begins to ignite that fuel-air mixture, that air that's compressing, and the gasoline that's been squirted in the cylinder. compresses all of that. It keeps compressing, keeps compressing. The spark plug ignites it, and it begins to burn. But on the atomic level, way down there where you're talking about atoms of hydrogen and carbon and nitrogen and everything else, on that level down there, that is a very, very, very slow burn. Now, as the piston reaches the top of the cylinder right there, it's getting close to compressing the fuel-air mixture to the point where it will flash or explode. In the industry, they refer to it as a flash. That's actually where you get the total power from your combustion is out of that flash. Now, in every single automobile engine that's out here, I don't care who makes it, BMW, Audi, Mercedes, Ford, GM, Hyundai, Kia, they all have to abide by the same physical laws in this universe, the one we reside in currently. And those laws say that the burn rate of this fuel-air mixture inside there has a specific time it takes to totally combust all of these gases. That burn rate determines how long it will take to combust all of the gases inside the cylinder. Now, there's a point on the crankshaft. It's measured in degrees after top dead center. And I hope everyone out there understands me when I talk about top dead center. If you don't, I'll explain that in a minute too. But anyway, after top dead center, somewhere between 15 to 25 degrees after top dead center, maybe 35 degrees in some engines, there's a place called the critical angle. Now, the critical angle is that point in the power stroke of the engine where the piston begins to turn the crankshaft as it's going down. But all of a sudden, once it reaches the critical angle, it's no longer moving left and right across the top of the crankshaft. It's now moving up and down on the crankshaft. So at that point, the critical angle, the piston begins to move down in the cylinder faster than the gases, the combusting gases above it, are pushing on the piston. What this means is that if all of the gases in the combustion chamber up here, if all of those gases are not totally combusted by the time the piston reaches the critical angle, the piston will simply suck those still burning gases, slow burning gases at that point, suck those gases down, and then on the exhaust stroke, the exhaust valve will open up inside the top of the cylinder head here, and it will push those gases out into the exhaust, where they're sort of neutralized by the catalytic converter. That's why the catalytic converter is there, because there's a lot of unburnt fuel coming out through the exhaust, and they know they have to do something about pollution. So catalytic converter is put in there, sort of an adjunct Band-Aid to the actual performance of the system there, so that they can actually clean the air with the catalytic converter as it's coming out of the exhaust. Okay? So, now, that's the system. When we add hydrogen, or in this particular case, HHO, that's hydrogen, hydrogen, and oxygen, in their monatomic forms now. When we add hydrogen to this air that's been taken from the intake manifold and sucked inside the cylinder there, when we add the HHO, or the hydrogen, to the fuel-air mixture, it has the effect of leaning this mixture out, okay? When you lean the mixture out in an engine, and by that I mean adding more air to the same amount of gasoline. In other words, less gasoline per volume is a lean configuration. More gasoline per volume is a rich configuration. So when we add HHO, hydrogen, to the fuel-air mixture, it leans that mixture out. Now, as the piston comes up on the compression stroke, and it starts to compress the fuel-air mixture inside there, and it starts the spark plug sparking and everything on there, when it gets to top dead center, there is too much air for it to flash. It can't flash, but the energy is still building up in all of that fuel-air mixture there. It's really, really going. And so now what happens is, after top dead center, about 1 or 2 degrees after top dead center, now you get the flash. And when you get the flash, it now pushes down on the piston, which is no longer sitting on the top of the crankshaft. It's sitting after top dead center. So now all of the combusted gases, now they can push down on the crankshaft. If it's not a lean configuration, when this combustion happens and when it flashes, the piston is sitting dead center, top dead center on the crankshaft. What does that mean? That means that when 30 to 40% of your combusting mixture is happening, it's happening as the piston sits directly on top of the crankshaft. Now, when it sits on top of the crankshaft, you can push on it as much as you want to, but it won't go anywhere. Why? Because it's sitting on top of the crankshaft. It can't go anywhere. But all these expanding gases around in the cylinder, they want to go somewhere. So where do they go? They go around the rings, inside the grooves of the rings, and wiggle their way around the body of the piston down inside the crankcase. That's how it goes. Now, after that 30 to 40% combustions happen, the piston has moved off top dead center, and the other 30 to 50% of the combustion now happens. That's without leaning the mixture out. What that means is that even though the engine is about 38% efficient in translating chemical energy into mechanical energy, at that particular moment when everything happens, you're only getting about 40 to 50% of the use of that fuel to turn the crankshaft. When you lean it out with HHO, the flash happens after top dead center. So everything that happens inside the combustion chamber, all the expanding gases and everything push down on the piston, which now is free to turn the crankshaft. That increases the efficiency of your engine some 40 to 50%, which is truly, truly just fantastic. So with HHO, it burns lean. It allows you to increase the efficiency of your engine some 40 to 50%. So now there's a lot of you sitting out there right now, mechanic types, and say, well, you know, you can't run your engine in a lean configuration very long. It'll burn up. Oh, my, are you ever right? Are you ever right? Yeah, the familiar sound of an engine blowing up. Oh, that's probably something else, but we won't go into that right now. Anyway, when your engine runs lean, there is the chance that it will blow up. How does it blow up? What exactly happens right there? Well, when the engine heats up, when you run it in a lean configuration, it heats up. Why does it heat up? Well, you've got more air inside there. More air causes it to burn hotter. And why is that, you say? Well, go back to the old blacksmith days. You know, you're banging a sword, it's red hot on the anvil, you're banging it, and it just takes a lot of effort to get that sword into a shape. So you need to get it a little hotter so that when you hit it, it actually does something to the metal. It's easier to mold, okay? So what do? You go over to that big bellows sitting on the side of the fire over there, and you push that thing down, up and down. You put fresh air inside the coals, yeah, and then what happens there? The fire gets hotter. And when you take the sword out of the coals, it's now white hot instead of red hot. Well, imagine that same thing happening inside your cylinder. And what happens then is too much air, lean condition, a hotter flame, higher temperatures inside the cylinder. And what happens is it heats the walls of the cylinder up a lot hotter than they normally would be. Now, what happens here is that when the cylinder walls increase in temperature, yeah, it's harder for your water jacket, the water in your car, it's harder for it to cool down. So you'll start to see the temperature gauge start to creep up inside there in that lean configuration. You'll also, as you step down on the accelerator, you hear something like marbles shaking in a can. Something like that inside there. When that happens, that is something called pre-detonation. Pre-detonation. What does that mean? Well, what happens is this. On the intake stroke, on a very hot cylinder now, lean condition, very hot cylinder, on the intake stroke, as it sucks air inside the cylinder, it reaches the bottom of the cylinder, the intake valve closes up, and the piston begins to compress the air on the compression stroke, pushing up towards the top of the cylinder there. But now the sides of the walls are so very, very, very hot, yeah? And now when the fuel is injected by the injectors into the combustion chamber, it begins to ignite. Before any spark plugs had any chance to do anything, it begins to ignite. And when it does, that ignition sends off like shock waves out through the entire cylinder. When the piston continues to go up, those shock waves are still happening. It's going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth until the combustion flashes and then the cycle is complete. Now it pushes down on the crankshaft, and we go through the exhaust stroke, and it pushes everything out of the cylinder. But on that compression stroke, when the piston comes up inside the cylinder, and it is burning before the spark plug has ignited it, that is called pre-detonation. And what's happening is it's putting pressure on the piston to actually kind of push back downwards in reverse order of what it's supposed to be going. So you lose a little bit of power. You put strain on the crankshaft. You put strain on all the bearings. You put strain on the camshafts and the belts and everything else inside the engine. And it is very, 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 very bad for your engine when you hear those marbles going on inside there. So what can happen when this situation is there? Well, the engine can heat up to such temperatures that the little seats on your intake and exhaust valves, the little seats will start to glow cherry red. And then as these shock waves from the pre-detonation continue to happen inside there, they will actually shatter. They will actually shatter the valve seats on the insides of there. When that happens, now you have no intake and outtake function at all anymore for your valves that are coming inside there, and it's just a terrible situation. The cylinder no longer will work. As it continues to go, the little pieces will get caught up inside the cylinder, flushed out, and all of a sudden, boom! Something will blow through the top of your engine. The heads have been blown off of engines. The pistons have come out of the sides of engines from things like this. It's a terrible situation. So lean configuration can cause pre-detonation, which is bad for your car. However, with HHO, hydrogen, that's monatomic hydrogen, monatomic oxygen, all right? When it flashes at the top of the cylinder right there, when it flashes, not at top dead center, just a little bit more, a little bit past top dead center. When it flashes, it creates superheated steam. What's superheated steam? Superheated steam is very, very, very high temperature and pressure steam. It's the same steam they use to launch airplanes, the jets off the aircraft carrier decks out there. Very, very, very strong force. So this steam now cleans everything inside the cylinder. But more importantly, it's water vapor. And now, as the piston begins to travel down in the cylinder on its power stroke, turning the crankshaft with it, it increases the volume inside the cylinder from that tiny little bit when it was up here in the top of the combustion chamber, and when it hits the bottom dead center, it's increased the volume of the cylinder by 87 times. Now, when you compress a gas, it gets hot. And when you expand a gas, it has a cooling effect. So now in the cylinders, because you have water vapor up there in the top from the HHO, steam, high pressure steam, when the piston goes down in the cylinder, it has the effect of cooling the entire temperature of the entire combustion down to below 300 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, we know this because we've done some tests on it. Also, there's no more nitric oxides forming in that particular case, and nitric oxides need at least 300 degrees Fahrenheit to form. So they're not forming, which means the temperature is below 300 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll pick this right back up as soon as we come back right after the break for the news here. This is Barry Hart with Fuel Savers Radio. We'll be right back.
WTAN, Clearwater, Tampa Bay. WDCF, Dade City, Tampa Bay. KLRG, Sheridan, Little Rock. And FM 94.5, K233BF, Little Rock.
CNN Radio, I'm Shelby Lynn. GOP voters in Missouri are caucusing today as those in Puerto Rico prepare to cast their ballots in the island's Republican primary tomorrow. CNN's Paul Steinhauser explains why Puerto Rico may hold more interest for most people.
Missouri Republicans gather at caucuses today on the county level. But since they don't include a presidential preference straw poll, there won't be any results to report on tonight. Now, the real action this weekend is in Puerto Rico, which holds a Republican primary tomorrow. 20 delegates are up for grabs.
Army Staff Sergeant Robert Bales will most likely face formal charges in the deaths of more than a dozen Afghan villagers within the next week. That's generally standard procedure in military crimes. The 38-year-old Bales is now jailed at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. The price of gas is up for an 8th straight day, now averaging $3.83 a gallon. The most trusted name in news. This is CNN Radio.
Gas prices are going to hit $4 a gallon by May, analysts say, and for once, I agree with them. Learn about the workings of the oil and gas industry, what you can do to soften the blow of higher fuel prices, and how you can eliminate toxic gases from your exhausts. Join me, Barry Hart, each Saturday from 4 to 5 p.m. on The Fuel Savers. You'll learn about the new shift technology, or shift, and how it can save you money on fuel, plus reduce air pollution. You'll also get tips on small things you can do to save big money on your fuel costs. The Fuel Savers.
Riding along in my automobile, my baby beside me at the wheel. I stole a kiss at the turn of a mile, my curiosity running wild, cruising and playing the radio, with no particular place to go.
Welcome back to Fuel Savers Radio Show. To be on the program, call toll-free 1-866-826-1340. Fuel Savers Radio informs you about new ideas in fuel-saving technology and what you can do to squeeze more miles per gallon from your car or truck. Call right now, 1-866-826-1340. Once again, here's the guru and pioneer of Fuel Genie Systems, Barry Hart.
And you're back with Fuel Savers right here on WTAN 1340 AM Tan Talk Radio. I'm your host, Barry Hart, and we're talking about how we can save you money on gas and diesel fuels for your car and truck. The number to call again if you have a question about any of this, 1-866-826-1340. And if you're in Pinellas County here in Florida, it's 441-3000. We're also streaming live over the internet with a video feed as well as audio. So if you want to see the big action here in the studio, all you have to do is go to www.fuelgeniesystems.com. Click on the Listen Now blue letters on the left side of the home page, and through the magic of technology, you can watch as well as listen to the show right here. Okay, before the break, I was explaining to you how hydrogen increases the efficiency of your engine. And we left off talking about this superheated steam inside the top of the combustion chamber there, and how that actually expands as the piston goes down inside the cylinder. When it expands, when gases expand, they create a cooling effect. So we've got this 1100 plus degrees combustion chamber temperature with the superheated steam up inside there. And now, as the piston starts to travel down, it's being pushed by the combusting gases, but as it travels down inside the cylinder, that volume inside the cylinder actually increases. And when it increases, it has a cooling effect. It expands. It expands the gases inside there. It expands the water vapor that's inside there. And when that happens, it cools the temperature down to below 300 degrees. How do we know 300 degrees? Well, we've done 5 gas analyzer tests on cars out here, and we found that with a Fuel Genie system, there's no nitric oxide being pushed out of your exhaust pipe there. And there's a reason for that. Nitric oxide, nitrous oxide, dinitrogen oxide, whatever you want to call it in its many different forms. That's like NO, NO2, N2O2, N2O4, those kind of things. They need a temperature of at least 300 degrees Fahrenheit to form. So if you're not getting any nitrogen oxide coming out of the exhaust, that means it's not forming in the engine, which means that the temperature of the combustion is below 300 degrees. Now, the water jacket, the cooling jacket inside your car that does your cooling for you, that's where you have your radiator in the front, that entire system there, that is more than able now to handle the temperature of the combustion. In fact, it's cooler than it normally would be with just hydrocarbons combusting inside the cylinder. So now we're able to run the car in a lean configuration using hydrogen. We're not going to pollute the atmosphere. We're going to remove the hydrocarbons. We're going to remove the carbon dioxide. We're going to remove the carbon monoxide. We're going to remove the nitric oxide. All of that just from using hydrogen. So if somebody asks you, how does hydrogen increase the efficiency of the car? It's very simple. It allows the engine to run in a lean configuration without overheating. Just that can get you 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50% increase in your miles per gallon when you're out there on the highway. When you're in the town, don't expect those increases because a lot of times you're going to be sitting at a stoplight. How many of you know about sitting in a special stoplight on your way to work? 2-3 minutes in a cycle. And then it's only open, turning green on your side for maybe a minute and a half, maybe 2 minutes tops, and then you're stuck again. You're sitting in traffic. Well, you're sitting in traffic. Gasoline is burning, but there's no miles being put on the odometer. So you're not going to get the increase in miles per gallon in town that you get on the highway. Okay? So now, I hope I've explained that for everybody here, how gasoline engines are more efficient with hydrogen. Now I'll go to diesel engines because this is a theme that keeps coming up in emails that everybody's sending to us. We used to get about 20 emails a week when we first started the show here. It's up to about over 50, between 50 and 70 emails a week is what's coming in. And I try to answer everybody's email that comes in, but when there's 10, 15, 20 of them with the same subject, same topics, I choose to answer the questions right here over the radio. So that's why we're explaining once again how hydrogen increases the efficiency of gasoline and diesel engines. And so now on to diesel engines. Diesel engines, little different animal. Diesel engines are already pretty efficient because they only flash after top dead center. That means the piston is already past top dead center before diesel engines have their flash. And why is that? Well, because in a diesel engine, there's a lot longer stroke. The piston goes up and down in the cylinder a lot further than it does in gasoline engines. So it has basically the same four-stroke characteristics to it. But on the intake stroke, the intake valve opens up and it sucks air down inside the cylinder. In fact, air is really forced inside the cylinder in many diesel engines. Then the intake valve closes and now the piston begins to go up into the compression stroke of the engine. When it goes up into the compression stroke, it pushes that air, compresses it, makes it hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter. When the piston reaches top dead center in a diesel, and this is the simple diesel. There are many different systems now, and it's not always totally true what I'm saying. But basically, when piston comes up to top dead center, that's where fuel is injected into the engine. And because the piston's already at top dead center, it takes just a tiny little bit of time for that mixture to flash. And when it does, it flashes when the piston is after top dead center in its position on the crankshaft. Okay? So now, 100% of the diesel fuel is able to explode and push down on the piston. But because diesel fuel burns so slowly, diesel fuel is still burning when the piston reaches the critical angle. In fact, it's still burning about 30 degrees after the critical angle is reached. So what does that mean? What happens there? That means that the fuel that is still burning after top dead center is being sucked down by the piston and pushed out into the exhaust. So in diesel engines, you're losing about a 30% efficiency in your chemical energy to mechanical energy transference there. 30% of the fuel burns so slowly it's not even used to turn the crankshaft. Now remember what I said earlier. Hydrogen accelerates the burn rate of the fuel-air mixture, okay? So now if we add just the right amount of hydrogen to this fuel-air mixture in the diesel engine, we can adjust the amount of hydrogen going into that cylinder so that we can accelerate the burn rate of that entire combustion so much that we can now have all of the diesel fuel combusted by the time the piston reaches that critical angle. And we save about 30% of the fuel right there. Now, what does that translate into? Well, for big diesel trucks out there, it translates into a minimum of a 20% increase in miles per gallon. When you're out on a highway, in town, that's somewhere between 10 and 15%, not a lot. And if you're in heavy traffic, it can drop down to 5% increase in miles per gallon. But the main thing is for truckers out there is that when you're on the highway, a minimum of 20% is what you're going to be saving. You're going to go 20% more miles on the same gallon of fuel than you did without a hydrogen system inside your truck. Okay? So, now that we have that explained, We should talk about the diesel exhaust, because diesel exhaust, these big black clouds of plume and flume from diesel engines that go all over the place out there. You see them from the big exhaust stacks. Some trucks have huge stacks that go way up past the tops of their cabs so that this big black smoke won't kill you as it's blowing into your face. But anyway, hydrogen now will clean all of that up. In fact, hydrogen will take everything out of there, because when it's burning up in the top of the cylinder, when it flashes up there, it creates the same thing in the diesel engines as it does in gas engines. It creates that superheated steam. That superheated steam with the hydrogen inside of it has a pop to it. And when that pop happens, that ripple effect goes throughout every single solitary atom in the entire combustion mixture. What it does is it knocks all the carbon, it knocks the electrons from the outer shell of the carbon atoms, turns those things into oxygen, or turns it into hydrogen. The only thing coming out of the exhaust, once it's properly adjusted, is hydrogen and oxygen gases in the form of a water vapor. You'll actually probably see even water vapor drip a little bit coming out of the exhausts of these things, but you won't see these big black clouds of smoke coming out of there anymore. So now, what does that mean for truckers and our economy and everything that's out here? Well, what that means is that on my way inside here today, I saw diesel fuel at the corner gas station had gone up to $4.19 a gallon. I know over in Miami area, it's already up to $4.63 a gallon over there. So, yes, indeed, that's quite crazy. But what that means is that 20% savings means for you as a trucker, every time you put a gallon of fuel oil in your tanks, you're going to save 80 cents. If diesel fuel hits $5 a gallon, you're going to be saving $1 for every gallon of fuel you put in your tank. Now, diesel truckers are out here, they're putting probably between 100, 120, 130 gallons a day inside their trucks. That's $100, $120, $130 a day you could be putting into your pockets. Yes. Such is the fantastic performance of hydrogen-aided combustion. Fuel Genie Systems has this. We've got the system perfected for these trucks. So what that means for a trucker is a typical system costs you between $22,000 and probably $2,300 in one of the big diesel truck, tractor trailer, semi-tractor trailers out here. So what that means is that if you're going to be saving $100 to $130 a day, that's out here, in about 20 days driving on the road, you're going to be saving about $2,000, $2,500. So inside of 1 month, your system will pay for itself, and after that, you'll be sticking $2,000 a month in your own pocket. That buys a lot of beer for the icebox, guys, I'm telling you. So hydrogenated combustion is here. Yeah, I'm telling everybody out there, it's proven, it's tested, it does work. You're not going to see it all over in major companies out here because the government has not embraced this technology. And nothing happens in any country if the government doesn't embrace it. The government looks at this as, how are we going to make money off this industry? The only thing we can do is get sales taxes from the installations and stuff like that. If you go to your congressman or a representative somewhere and say, hey, there's this new technology out here that can save the government a lot of money because there's a lot of government vehicles that are using just copious amounts of fuel every day, could be saving 20% if they had one of these systems inside the vehicles right there. But congressman or representative, just like the shakedown artists from the mob, will say, well, there's not much I can do about this. Give them $20,000 for a re-election campaign, and the answer will be, you are right. I'm going to take this up to the Congress. This is going to happen tomorrow. They run like the mob. They only work if you pay them. They don't care that you elect them and that they're representing you. No, if you want them to do something, you have to pay them. And nobody has that kind of money to do that stuff. So the government's not embracing this technology. Until the government embraces this technology, you're not going to see the big companies out here and do it. So right now, it's a cottage industry, but we're expanding. We here at Fuel Genie Systems, I've got about 27 people right now in the mix working on getting their distributors certificates and getting their installer certificates. That's mostly out here on the East Coast, but we have a couple in Arizona, out in Wyoming, and Utah. We actually have a fellow out in Provo who wrote an email and asked about what he can do to begin his classes and learn how to install these things. Now, hydrogen-aided combustion is one thing, yes, and it does indeed work. And there are thousands and thousands of these things, these little devices that you can put in your car, hydrogen-aided combustion devices. Yeah, they don't call them that, but that's basically what they are, that you can put in your car so that you too can save money. And you'll see the big display of advertisements on the internet. Yes, everything will be there. Save money on fuel. This device does it all. Don't wait. Do it now. Ours works better than anybody else's. Well, everybody out there selling these devices guarantees them. 100% guaranteed to work. Well, that's true. But they don't even give you the fine print to read. But here's the fine print. What they do is they sell you a device that is guaranteed 100% to split water into hydrogen and oxygen. And that's it. They don't guarantee anything else. Do they guarantee you're going to get an increase in miles per gallon in your car? No. Do they guarantee that it's going to clean the air up from your exhaust? No. Do they guarantee anything other than it will split water into hydrogen and oxygen? No. Don't waste your money. Don't buy this stuff. These guys are scam artists. They're out there trying to make a quick buck. They have no idea how hydrogen works in the engine. They have no idea how to adjust these devices to your car. All they know is that everybody's out there making these things. They take a look at it. They put something together inside their garages, put up a website for 25 or 30 bucks, and boom, they're in business selling this crap to the public out here. Well, I'm here to tell you, luckily you have me here to tell you this. Be careful what you buy over the internet. Be very, very careful. And if you were thinking about buying something over the internet, you're within the sound of my voice anywhere you are on planet Earth. If you have a question about buying something over the internet, call me or email me. I'll look at it. I'll give it an evaluation. And if I think it can work and work well in your car, I'll recommend it. It doesn't have to be a Fuel Genie system. We recommend Fuel Genie systems because we know they do work. Not only that, but with a Fuel Genie system, it's nothing that you install yourself. You have to go to a Fuel Genie authorized service center. Now, why is that? Well, since these systems it's critical how these systems are installed in your vehicle, your truck, your car, whatever. It can blow up. There are a lot of people out here who don't have all of the safety devices we have on Fuel Genie systems. There are a lot of people out here putting hydrogen into the engines, copious amounts of the hydrogen into the engines, that the wrong thing happening inside that engine, a backfire or a backflash or something, and pow, they're going to blow something up. That's pretty much what it sounds like right there. So we don't really want to do that. What you want to do is you want to be safe when you're driving down the road. So you need to have your system installed by a trained technician, somebody who's been through the class, somebody who has their certification, knows what to do, knows how to install it, and does it correctly. Somebody who, when something happens to your system or something goes wrong, you know a place to take it back to, get it fixed, and with no cost to you whatsoever, and on you go with saving money and fuel out there. That's so very, 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 very important for anybody that's out here. So again, be careful. If you're buying any of these things off the internet, some of them do work, some of them won't. It depends upon your application and what you're doing. Some of them can be adjusted correctly to your engines, and some of them have no way to adjust these things to your engine. So be careful. If you have any questions, email me, BarryH@FuelGenieSystems.com, or you can give me a call on the website there. I think the number is 866-209-6682. That's 866-209-6682. You can pick that number up on our Fuel Genie Systems website as well. Okay, now we are into the show here, and I want to talk to you a little bit about supplemental hydrogen injection fuel technology, or SHIFT technology. That's what you're going to be seeing out here on all Fuel Genie systems. We've trademarked that term right there, SHIFT technology. So if you see it anywhere else out there and it's not a Fuel Genie, give me a call, let me know about it. I'd be happy to see that. SHIFT technology, what does that mean exactly? Well, it stands for Supplemental Hydrogen Injection Fuel Technology. Supplemental Hydrogen Injection Fuel Technology. And what that means is that supplemental hydrogen is added to your gasoline or diesel fuels to increase the efficiency in your engine. That's what it means. Supplemental means a small part. It's a supplement to the fuel that you're using in your engine. It's not the total fuel. A lot of people email me and say, where do you put the hydrogen? How does the hydrogen get into your gas tank? It doesn't go in the gas tank. We actually inject it into the intake manifold, either of a gasoline engine or just before it goes into the intake manifold in a diesel application there. Okay? So the hydrogen goes in as a vaporized gas, mixes with the air, goes into the combustion chamber from there. Does not get added to the gasoline. Okay? So supplemental means a smaller part. You only need a small amount of hydrogen inside your engine to increase its efficiency up to 50%. You don't need a lot. I see devices on the internet touting their system so very, very good because our system puts out 5 liters of hydrogen per minute. Well, I'll tell you what, 5 liters of hydrogen is 5 liters of hydrogen per minute is probably enough to save the Queen Mary 20% on its fuel bill as it travels back and forth across the Atlantic Ocean or wherever else it sails for all that matter. But that's an awful lot of hydrogen. That is an awful lot of power. That is just a tremendous amount of power that's going into your engine in some cases, and in some cases it's not even making it into your engine. If you use a device that's producing that much hydrogen and you're putting that into your diesel truck, let's say you're putting it into a semi-tractor trailer, and if you're injecting that before the turbocharger, because that's where you have a little bit of suction, could suck this in, a lot of things happen. First of all, when you add energy to HHO, or this hydrogen, this split hydrogen and oxygen from the water that you have, when you add energy to that, it turns back into a water molecule, water vapor, if you will. Now, it also, if it has any of the sodium or any of the electrolyte left on it from being split in the hydrolyzer of these systems, that's going to, atoms of that electrolyte, either potassium or sodium or in some cases alcohol, that is going to be, traces of atoms are going to be carried with that water vapor into your intake manifold. First of all, it's going to go through the turbocharger. Now, when it goes through the turbocharger blades turn between 10,000 and 110,000 RPMs. That's revolutions per minute for those of you out in California listening. 10,000 to 110,000 RPM. They can even go up as high as 150,000 RPM. It gets very, very hot inside of a turbocharger. So now you're going to take monatomic hydrogen, monatomic oxygen, that if you add just tiny bits of energy to it, turns into a water molecule. And you're going to feed that right into that whipping mixing bowl of a turbocharger. From there, it's going to be whipped right into nothing but water vapor. From there, it's going to go into an intercooler if your diesel vehicle has that. The big rigs do. And that condenses the air, makes it cooler, and it concentrates the amount of water vapor inside there even more. Now, this is what's going to be going into the intake manifold of your engine. The sodium or potassium, if you use them, is a pretty corrosive substance to aluminum. So if the blades inside the turbocharger or the body of the turbocharger is made from aluminum, and most of them are, in about a year or 2 years using this, your turbocharger is going to die. It's just flat out going to die. The vanes are going to be pitted. The body's going to be pitted. It might not even turn as much as it normally does, but typically these all have lubricated bearings, oil lubricated bearings inside the turbochargers themselves. So they'll keep turning, but the efficiency will just be terrible. And it will go to the part where it's actually weakened so much, the blades are weakened so much that they could actually fly through the casing of the turbocharger, and who knows where they go after that. Hopefully not through the cab of the truck. Anyway, it's dangerous to inject hydrogen before the turbocharger. It's not good for the vehicle at all. So if you're a truck out there and you're doing something like this, go back and rethink your entire process there. If you're an installer and you're installing these things in friends of yours that have these big rigs out here, just remember, you could be harming the engine. I'm not saying you will, but you could be. If those parts are aluminum, they definitely are at risk. So Don't do that. That's a bad thing. All right? Okay, now that was just explaining the shift technology to you, the supplemental hydrogen injection fuel technology. You only need a small part on that, remember. So don't go for these kits that brag about, 2 liters of HHO per minute, 10 liters of HHO per minute. Those are for engines at probably 50 liters in size or bucket-size cylinders on ships and things like that. That's where that much hydrogen is good for. Do not put that much hydrogen inside your car. Not only is it bad for the engine, but it could blow up. And when I mean blow up, I'm talking about taking you and maybe a city block with you. So I just love that sound. I'd hate to hear it, though, on one of these devices because it only takes one of these things blowing up and the entire industry will go away. The government will say, oh, bad, bad, bad. No, we don't want to do this. They will ban it. And now that will hurt everybody out here. So if you know somebody in there bragging about their hydrogenated devices sitting out there, they're saying, oh, yeah, my device puts out 2 liters of HHO per minute. Back away from him, get as far away from him as you possibly can, and tell him, don't want to be near you. That's bad for your engine. You don't know what you're doing. Go listen to Fuel Savers Radio. They'll tell you what's going on out there. Okay, we are slowly progressing through things that I needed to tell you here. We've got a few things to talk about. I want to do some shout-outs here, first of all, to some people that are very, very important to us. Also, I want to remind people that if you're looking for a job, if you're a mechanic and you're out of work, you need a job or something that's going on, go to our website. Yeah, click on, type in the email section there, click on our email form, and let us know that what you are, what your qualifications are. We can put you through a schooling here and educate you to a career, a profession that will make you an awful lot of money as the years go on. You'll be saving the air, the environment of the planet, and you're going to be saving all of your customers a lot of money on that as well. Also, if you are a person who's got a few extra dollars under the mattress right there and are looking to turn that money into something more, you may want to consider a distributorship for Fuel Genie products. We're growing out here. If you're sitting on your thumbs and you're sitting on your hands, you just might lose out in the end. So now, I want to get to the shout-outs for today's show. First, I want to shout out to Chaba Major. Chaba, I hope you're listening, Chaba. Chaba is the owner of East Bay Auto Service on the East Bay Road here in Largo. That's on the north side of the road right there and just shy of Missouri, if anybody who knows the area here. Chaba specializes in diesel installations, but if you have a car and you go and you beg and talk to him really, really nice, he'll put it in your gasoline engines too. And once you see how he does it, you will be very, very, very impressed. He does it professionally, and there's nobody who does it better. Ramsey Automotive on Alberton Road. He'll pay for the Fuel Genie system if you install it in your car when you purchase a car from him. Regal Cars. Regal Cars on Drew Street, 2100 Drew Street in Clearwater out here. Will also pay for your system if you buy a car from them. That's $300 to $350, could be $500 if you have a big truck out there. So Regal Cars. And a special shout-out, a special birthday wish to Karen, one of our loyal listeners whose comments contribute a lot to the content of this show. Happy birthday, Karen, and thank you for listening. So, that's it for today's show. This is Barry Hart saying drive lean, drive clean, drive far on your gasoline with Fuel Genie systems. So long, everybody.